We can no longer ignore the elephant in the room. People are lonely. It is a huge problem. This loneliness epidemic is real. The problem is so big that, according to a Wall Street Journal article last week, it is costing companies $158 billion with a B, dollars. And honestly, if you're watching this, you're lonely or you know someone who's lonely. But here's the thing, how do we solve it? Well, don't worry, this episode is not going to be all doom and gloom, but this article that just came out is going to really help highlight some of the real issues of why we're lonely so that we can start coming up with some solutions. And I will provide some really simple versions of those today. So stick with me, let's talk about it and find how we can all become more connected and less isolated. Welcome to the Creating Opportunities podcast. This is the place where we help smart, ambitious professionals build relationships so that they can create success in all areas of their lives. And to do that, to build a relationship, you gotta connect with people. We don't want you lonely. Now, I am your host, Cassandra. I am a speaker, a trainer, an iced coffee lover, and I wanna help you make deeper connections. Last week, the Wall Street Journal published an article, The Loneliness of the American Worker. And in it, it highlighted the giant problem that loneliness is in our workforce, and that an alarming number of workers are experiencing significant loneliness, and this problem is only being exacerbated by our digital communication and the current trends of remote work. Okay, so like I said, we have to pinpoint the problems before we can come up with solutions. And this article that came out, I think, really helps with seeing what some of those specific problems are. First, the article pointed out that according to a Bright Horizons survey, 40% of remote workers can go days without leaving their homes. Days. Now, I totally understand that from experience. I've done it myself. Secondly, this isolation is costly to companies. Now, you might not care about the company bottom line, but it's contributing to high staff turnover, which is becoming a $154 billion problem. So you might think you don't care about the bottom line, but if you know people who are looking for jobs or keep getting laid off, if companies aren't making money and they're losing money, there's less jobs for everyone. But the reason it's a $154 billion problem for corporations and companies is due to absenteeism from loneliness. Because here's a real issue with loneliness. And if you have felt lonely, you've probably experienced this. Loneliness begets loneliness. If I feel lonely, if I feel isolated, it is that much harder to take a step to go to a party, to take a step to go to that networking event or that, hear that speaker talk at something in town. It just is harder. So I can see, it seems strange, like, ooh, if you're lonely, why would you be calling in sick from work? Wouldn't you want to be around people? But if you're already feeling isolated, it kind of traps you. And so it's now a massive absenteeism problem. And then there was a really interesting point. People are being suffocated by meetings. There were a couple of different examples in the article of having hybrid work experiences where at home they're really productive, and then on their in-office days, they are stacked with back-to-back-to-back meetings. And because of that, everything is formalized. There is no time for casual interaction. And it turns out casual interaction matters a whole lot to combat isolation. On top of the back-to-back meetings, they did report that Cushman & Wakefield, the real estate company, said that their in-office workers were spending, 20% of their time on virtual meetings and only 8% in office meetings. Again, this is why people don't want to come back to the office, because why are you going to make me come back to the office to then remote meeting somebody when I could have done that from home? Fun fact, I had a friend who worked at a university that when they did hey, everyone's got to come back to work, she had like an hour and a half commute to sit at her desk and do coaching calls over Zoom, which she had been doing for 2 years from her house. Why would you drive all that way for that? So just that's a separate issue, but it's lessening connection. You're taking up my time with more online connection, which doesn't feel connected. Just makes no sense. But again, research shows the casual interactions, not the formalized meetings, whether online or in person, the casual interactions actually matter a lot. Pleasantries, the quick pass in the hallway, the little joke made here, the hey, how was your weekend? those things actually reduce our stress and shockingly provide a feeling of connection. We think we have to go deep to connect with somebody. You don't. I did a call yesterday with someone where it turned out she was in New York when we were on the call. We talked about the High Line and how she's in New York. Nothing deep about it, but she even said on the call, I feel really comfortable now talking to you. It doesn't take a lot to connect. Small talk and pleasantries really can do it. Doesn't mean you don't go deep, but let's value the small talk. So here's another reason why those casual interactions on the decline are a really big issue and a really big detriment. 10 years ago, this is according to the article, this isn't just like my thoughts. 10 years ago, workplaces were setting up groups on groups on groups, replacing and creating connection for employees, replacing other community groups and creating connection for employees, because 10 years ago, church attendance and community groups, the attendance at those things was on the decline and work groups were replacing those, right? Now there's a whole separate conversation that could be had there that we might have in a minute about, is that the healthiest too? If like all your social interactions are at work, etc., does work become your life? But now that the work groups are on the decline too, the casual interactions at work on the decline, that all these people are reporting, I don't even feel like I know any coworkers on a somewhat personal level, after we already don't have groups outside of that to belong to, no wonder we live in a world that's lonely, right? Like, massive issue. We now have nowhere that we're connecting. That's a problem. And then one piece from the article that I found really interesting, all workplaces have an increase in loneliness. So when I say all workplaces, I mean in-office, hybrid, remote, etc. They all had an increase in loneliness, but remote work did especially exacerbate loneliness. I actually did a video all about this on my career channel last year about how remote work is harmful to your health. Nobody wants to hear it. No one wanted to hear it then, but now this article is coming out and telling you like, yeah, we got a real problem on our hands. So I will put a link if you are interested in that. I will put a link to it in the description box below or in the show notes so that you can go watch that one, because remote work is a really big issue and I think we need to have a bigger conversation about it. But in general, this article did say loneliness has increased across the board, but in remote work it is more exacerbated. And they think the reason it's exacerbated is because we now live in a world that focuses on productivity and values productivity over connectivity. I have been beating this drum for years and I am a productivity queen. I love being productive, but we live in a data-driven world. We live in a world that we are tracking everything down to our sleep, right? Did I get enough hours? And if I didn't get enough hours, is my day ruined? We like inputs and outputs now. And having small talk with someone doesn't see a return on investment immediately. This is my whole thing with networking and building relationships in general. It's really hard to prioritize it on your calendar when you have a list of tasks that you can cross off and go, oh, I'm productive. And instead say, oh, well, I talked to people for 3 hours today. Well, what did it get you? Oh, I don't know yet. Like, it's super hard in our data-driven world to put our minds there now. So I highlighted this part of the article. I went, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging it. We are totally over-indexing productivity over connectivity, and then we're sitting around going, why are we lonely? I don't know. That's why. So I would say, hinting a little bit to solutions we'll talk about in a second, we love doing things that are good for our health now and tracking that. So just remember that every time you say hi to someone, every time you ask, hey, how's your weekend? Even though it doesn't feel like it's productive, it is increasing your health. It is optimizing your health. So maybe we have to flip the script and make it feel like part of our productive routine. Okay, but the most interesting thing that was in this article, and this one, if you are somebody who has tried to get people in a group, if you're a community builder, if you are someone who is building a membership, get ready, you're gonna recognize what I'm about to say. These companies said, we have employees complaining that they're lonely, saying they're so lonely, saying how they want things to join in. So we create activities, we create things for them to come to, and then they don't come. And then they tell us they're lonely. I have been there. This is so hard. This is the hardest part. But here's what I came to from that. While I completely applaud these companies that are trying to fix this, I am so glad they are trying to create community. I have had conversations with friends who are building communities who will say they love when we organize something. They want it to be organized and planned for them. And even in those cases, they'll say they'll show up. But the second we're like, hey, go meet somebody this week, they won't take the initiative and do it. All of this is really showing me there is an individual responsibility to this. If we are going to solve this problem, you have an individual responsibility. I have an individual responsibility. We cannot rely on the company to fix it. We cannot rely on the business association in town to fix it. It can help, but you have to take some initiative too. So here's how we can do that. First, if you are a remote worker, get out of your house, okay? Get out of your house every single day. This is where transitions matter, actually. There was a lot of research that came out during COVID about people now working from home losing their commute and actually it being such a hard switch because they lost that transition time that they had in their commute. So you need transitions. So maybe that transition for you is going to the gym in the morning, or it can be something really simple. So back in the day when I first started working remote, I could truly not leave my house all day and see 0 people, right? But I decided to go get a Diet Coke every day at Circle K. Circle K is like the 7-Eleven, the local mini mart of Arizona. I know there are other places too, but that's our main local one. And they had this membership deal, $6, and you could get a drink every day. $6 a month, get a drink every day. So I would just at least get out of my house to spend 10 minutes driving, getting my Diet Coke, driving home. I might have talked to the person at the register for 30 seconds, but I was around people for a minute. Or this is why I will go to the library, right? It's just to be around people a little bit. So number 1, get out of your house every day in some way, shape, form. Again, I know we like productivity, so maybe start seeing this as a box you check off that's improving your health, because it is. Second, I would suggest joining something outside of work. So as much as I really appreciate that this article discussed like workplaces don't have as many groups anymore, as I kind of said earlier, but I'll give you a more specific example, those groups I thought were kind of making work become life. So when I worked briefly at Riot Games, it was really cool. They had all these different interest groups, not just ERGs, but like the dinner club that tried out different restaurants, the softball league, right? The happy hour group, the people who wanted to try Asian cuisine. I don't know why my brain's all focused on food. A movie group, right? Like the cinephiles. And while that was really neat, I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people are just having all their friends be at work. And then work becomes your entire life. And then if you want to leave work, right? This is why they made the groups. You weren't sure if you wanted to move on to another job because these are where all your people are. So I don't know if work having all those interest groups is the solution. So I would recommend join something outside of it. Go back to church, right? Go join a Bible study, be in a community group, or find a local group that you can be a part of, or join a Pilates class that you take every Saturday. Find something outside of work to start becoming connected to. And then you need to make small talk. Remind yourself this does pay off. So again, we are so data driven. We don't like doing anything without knowing the benefit, without knowing the causality between if this, then that. So just know, asking somebody about their day is contributing to their well-being and is contributing to yours. Plus, you can't deepen a relationship until you make small talk first. So remember, there is value there. One thing I really liked that I'll probably talk about more soon, in the book Super Communicators, Charles Duhigg talks about you can make small talk and make it deepen connection quicker when you add some keywords to a question. So here's an example. You could ask somebody, oh, what part of town do you live in? But then when they tell you, you're gonna say, oh, do you like your neighborhood? Now they might just say yes, but they're probably gonna give you a yes and a why. If they just say yes, you could ask why. So by saying, do you like it? You've gone deeper. It doesn't feel deep, but it is deep. People are going to start expressing pieces of themselves instead of just facts. So small talk can actually go deep. But here's where I'm about to get real controversial. This is why this issue of small talk and frequency and consistency mattering just as much as deepening connections, that just that ongoing matters. This is why I'm going to beg you, don't use mobile order. Talk to your Starbucks barista. Don't use order pickup when you go into Kava and you just grab your bag off the shelf. You need to go talk to a person. Again, we are sitting around wondering why we're lonely when we are taking away opportunity after opportunity to connect with another human being for the sake of efficiency and productivity. Those things are great. There might be a time you need them. I did drive up at Target yesterday, right? But overall, stay away from those quick wins that take away human contact. We need humanity. Next up, talk to your boss if your work meetings are stacked. Bring them this article. I will link to the article below. Show them how this can be detrimental, that you're running from spot to spot to spot. And if you have a good boss, hopefully they will be willing to kind of talk through and see if we can make adjustments to make your schedule better, to allow for some of that downtime and casual interaction. And I understand for some of you, you don't have those bosses. I've been there, but if you can, I suggest doing it. And then if your company is creating these events, right, because people are saying they're lonely, go to the sponsored, formalized fun. Even if you don't know anyone who is going, you don't know who you'll meet. So as much as like forced fun is kind of annoying at first, there is an actual benefit from it. You're going to feel connected. You might meet new people. Look, not every event is a winner. I have gone things before where I've come home and gone, yeah, today would have been better spent on my couch, but I've also gone to many other things where I think, wow, I'm really glad I forced myself to go out there and do this. So go to the formalized fun if your work is willing to put in the effort. Okay, so let me know, what about you? What are your thoughts on this issue? If you read the article, what were your big takeaways? Let me know in the comments. Are you gonna try and do something from this? Is there a point I didn't hit on? I would love to hear in the comments of this video, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, my email is in the show notes. You can email me. I would love to chat with you. That's it for today. And I'm gonna do something wild for a YouTube video. Go listen to my remote work is hazardous to your health video over here next.